If you've got a Bible with you, you can open up to John chapter 9. We are looking at Jesus's I am statements. And if we look at the Gospel of John, the book of John, John is actually making a case for the divinity of Jesus, Jesus being God in the flesh. This is one of those sermons, I know if you've been here a while, you think, oh, that's just normal what Jerry does. Man, this has got rabbit trails for Jerry written all over it. Because we're going to be looking at this statement that Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And you can follow along here, but at the beginning of John chapter 8, Jesus actually says this, bless you, that he is the light of the world. Whoever believes in him shall not walk in darkness. He then, there's a real life an event that takes place in John chapter 9, and it blows my mind that it's like you were watching this take place and you still don't believe. And we gather here as believers, but also as those seeking to know more about Jesus. And we'll get to all that stuff. Well, over the last couple of weeks, we have seen week 1, the eternal word becoming flesh. In week 2, Jesus calls himself the bread of life. Week 3, Jesus claimed the divine name that I am in the temple before Abraham was I am, is what he says. Really flips the script. Man, Pharisees are not big fans of him right now. And again, this is a cumulative case that John is building, and it points again to the divinity of Jesus, Jesus being God. So today, man, it's going to be demonstrated again. It's like, wait, hasn't he been doing this all along? Yes, but it ties in perfectly. Now, if you watch the What's Up Wednesdays or my midweek thing that we send out or on YouTube, you think about light. If the room is, I like to look at it from a hunter's perspective, like you're in the woods and you can be out in the woods in the daylight and everything is normal. Now, I'm not really intimidated by the darkness by any means, because it's just like, well, everything's just the same. There's just a different version of critters out, right? But now I know some of us might be like, I don't go outside at night. There's just something about it that I'm not going to go do, but I'll walk out in the daylight. Well, if you're a hunter, and you're walking, and like a stick, same stick's been there. It's the exact same stick that's there during the day. It's a limb, and it touches you, you're pretty sure you're getting assaulted by something in the darkness, right? You're like, whoa, what is happening? And you're walking to your bow stand or your deer blind, and you're just moving like twice as fast. So there's a thing about the darkness. Or just imagine a room. If you're in a room and the lights are out, you're getting your phone, and I recommended this in the middle of the week, the note that, have a flashlight with batteries in it. That's like a pro tip, because eventually your phone will die. But make sure you've got one of those at home. But when you're in the darkness, you're looking for a light switch, you're bumping into walls, and it's your house. Like you live there and you're bumping into stuff. Why is that? But you flip the light switch on, I'm probably still good. We have a thing in my house. Jerry says ow a lot. Now, I don't know if that's y'all. It was this morning early, I think my wife said, she goes, well, what happened? Well, I hit something, because I was fumbling through the dark. Same doors. They've existed for years, and I bump into them. What is it? What does happen at night? Well, I think there's a thing. We don't really realize how much we depend on the light. Is it like a thing that we see as a convenience, or is it something we need? Imagine if you did life in the darkness. Well, there's a person here in the Bible that did life in the dark. Now, I want to tie this into spiritual stuff, right? Because spiritually speaking, we have a lot of folks that walk in the dark. I remember the days that I walked in the darkness. And you may think, well, I've never tried to do anything bad on purpose and these types of things, but we're walking in spiritual darkness because there's a phrase here that comes up. What does it mean to be saved? It's like, well, if you were drowning and somebody throws a life preserver, they're attempting to save you. But when they pull you out of that ocean, they're saving you. And there's a difference there. If otherwise you're lost and you're not found, there's a saving that takes place there. Jesus is going to show us what it looks like to do such a thing. Eternity actually rests on Jesus. It rests on the fact whether or not you have a relationship with him. He took, in one of these songs, the sin, he hung up there for your sin, for you, so that he could take the punishment. He could have easily not done it. He could have easily got himself off that cross as they were yelling at him to do so, but he hung up there. He kept himself up there so that the weight of the world would fall on him. So when you think about being saved, this is Jesus stepping in to save, and then you place your faith and trust in him. You are now saved and you are a believer. Now, John 8:12 again says, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So hang on to that because he's about to go to the real life application part here. Now, to set a little context here, we've got a guy who was born blind in chapter 9, and the Pharisees are going to wrap around the axle on it because they're going to ask the question, hey, well, the disciples too. The disciples are in this, guys, and they're asking, hey, who sinned, this man or his parents? Well, he was born blind, so you're thinking he didn't have a shot, right? He was born that way. So, well, we got to blame the parents. Well, that's a whole nother sermon, but that's a true thing that we can do when we blame somebody else. We're going to look at that blame here in a minute. So we look at this miracle that's going to be taking place. I want to compare Jesus to being the light of the world to the sun. You think I've heard countless statements how beautiful it is outside today. Is it not? It's a beautiful day. It's a great day to be outside not doing chores. But if you got to do chores, you do them. But still, it's a beautiful day. How much more beautiful is your life, knowing that your eternity is secure because you are found in the one who can save you. Jesus is going to demonstrate it. So let's dig in. We're going to look at the first couple verses. And this is John chapter 9, verses 1 through 7. And it says this, as he passed by, he saw a blind man from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, it was not that this man sinned or his parents, but the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with the saliva. Then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud and said to him, go, wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. Now that should catch, what? The disciples see a blind man. And they're like asking the question. Jesus is like, well, check this out. Now I want to compare something here because I've had these rabbit trails and I've shared them with some folks over the past week. We won't get into transfiguration. That's a whole different rabbit trail. But Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. I know some of you theologians in the room are thinking, I know exactly what happened. Well, let me tell you. So God creates man, and he creates man from what? Dust, earth, right? And he breathes life into it. What just happened? The creator of the universe is walking around. Now I know it seems awkward, spits in the dirt and rubs it on this man who's blind. That's the same God who created the universe. That gives me goosebumps. And maybe I'm just weird that way, but that's the same God who I place my faith and trust in for my salvation. I don't know, man. It gets me all jacked up in a good way. I'm like, wait a minute, that's the God who knows me, who calls me by name. That same God. And still, watch, it just blows my mind. Like you saw this take place and you still don't believe. So they see this and they're asking these questions. And there's this, they want to solve a theological puzzle. Well, the blind man, we're going to read, he knew nothing about theology. So when we look at it, we see we kind of hang out in this, but show me more kind of area, or hey, prove it to me, or answer these prayers. And then the blind man was just, Jesus met him right where he was at and told him to do something after he had touched him, after he encountered the living God. That encounter is what brought God glory. He said, stop looking for someone to blame, because that's what they were doing, right? Who sinned here? Was it the guy or was it his parents? And Jesus is like, why are we pointing fingers, man? We could point fingers all day long. I do it. It seems real easy to point the fingers. But Jesus is like, what? That's not what I'm getting at here. He's like, I am reinforcing the fact that I am the light of the world. So he repeats this declaration in verse 5 right before he heals the man. And it's not just a title. I know we love titles. He performs what the title means. He actually does what he says. That's like Jesus' impeccable integrity. He's like, this is who I am. I am the light of the world. Now this pool, there's some meaning behind it. It actually means sent. So wait a second. The pool means sent, and wait a minute. Who did the Father send? Jesus. Like you can't make this stuff up. If you spend time in the Bible, guys, you're going to see that this whole thing connects. And if you've ever sat down and said, well, I want to read it front to back, just go to John and start there. Well, I can't read the back of the book because, well, I have to start at the beginning. Well, see if you make it through Leviticus. I don't know. And we'll see where it goes from there. I never made it to John. I got stuck on all these rules. I can't shave my beard. My wife hates it. Go to John, start there, and then we'll work our way around. But that's just a thought. So you might be thinking, how do I apply this in my life? Well, stop assigning blame. This is one of the things that happens, and start asking better questions. This week, think of one situation in your life or in someone else's where you have been stuck in the blame question. I'm guilty of this, guys. What changes when you swap it for the God question? Not who caused this, but what does God want to do here? In my selfishness and my sin and these things that I do personally, and I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm turning this over to you. I want to be set free from this. And he's like, cool. If I stumble, I'm like, okay, Lord, what are you trying to teach me here? What do you want to do? Because I'm tired of doing my thing. This other one, obedience precedes sight. And if I just wrote obedience up here, everybody'd leave probably. But obedience precedes sight. Is there something that God has been asking you to do that you've been waiting to do until you fully understand it? Like go to church. I'm not saying church solves all your problems. Jesus is in this problem-solving business. I like to create problems, apparently. But is there something there that you're like, I'm waiting for God's answer here, and he's just like, man, I'm just asking you to take a step. And maybe that step is just talking to him. I need to open my Bible, and I don't know where. Jerry says I should start in John. Is that true? I don't know. Maybe you are called Leviticus. I don't know, but let me know how it goes. So think about it. Consider taking the step. And we want to apply real-life application to his word. And he's going to continue to do it in John chapter 9. So let's look at verses 8 through 12. Now, so the blind man is going home, right? There's neighbors. This is wild. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar were saying, is this not the man who used to sit and beg? Some said, it is he. Others said, no, but he is like him. He kept saying, I am the man. So they said to him, then how were your eyes opened? He answered, the man called Jesus made mud and anointed my eyes and told me, go to Siloam, I can't do that word today, and wash. So I went and washed and received my sight. They said to him, where is he? He said, I do not know. So this goes back to, if you've ever watched or read the theology of the thief on the cross and why the middleman ended up at being with Jesus in heaven that day when Jesus says, today you will be with me in paradise. There's a whole bunch of theological questions he was probably asked when he got there, right? No. The man on the middle cross said I could come. He knew nothing. This blind man is in the same position. They're asking him all this, and I don't understand this first part. They're like, hey, is this the same guy? Well, of course it's the same guy. He can just see. He doesn't look different. But they are confused. They really just can't believe this happened. Now, what this man has is a testimony. Everyone in this room has a testimony or has a testimony that's building, because if you haven't placed your faith and trust in Jesus Christ and experienced that saving that only he can do, he's working on that testimony right now. Because everybody's got a before and an after. And that clash of Holy Spirit and sin nature, when that happens, and that, like, I call it a nuclear explosion, and all of a sudden that God-shaped void that exists in the heart gets filled, something's different. Now there's a testimony, and this man's actually walking it out, and he's talking to folks. It's simple, it's honest, and it's spot on. He doesn't have theology, just like the thief on the cross. He doesn't have a systematic answer. I know some of us do for every question that they throw at him. He's like, well, did you know? He has nothing. He just says, this man named Jesus. That's it. This man named Jesus. All he knows is what happened to him. And here's the thing with testimony and theology. People will argue theology. They will argue against Jesus. I don't ever see how that's a winning battle. But they will argue all these things in the Word of God to say, well, you know, this could go that way. This could go. You know what you can't argue with is somebody's testimony. Because it's yours. It's mine. It's my encounter with Jesus, the creator of the universe. It's my relationship, that encounter with the I am. That's what it's about. People can't argue with it. They might say you're crazy, and people have. They said, Jerry, you're kind of crazy. I'm like, yeah, well, I was crazy before, and now I'm just crazy like for Jesus and understand my sin a little bit more. Because the Lord reveals that as we get to know him more. So again, he doesn't have it all. He made mud, he put it on my eyes, he told me to go wash, and I went and I washed, and now I see. That's it. Oh, and by the way, I went back and then I picked up my Bible and then I made sure to get to church, and then I said, oh yeah, I got to get baptized. Wait a second, did he just get in the pool? Now I know the words didn't happen with baptism right there, but he got in a pool. Jesus told him to. You see, I'm telling you, you can't make this stuff up, man. This is just what's in there. Wild, just wild, man. Genuine testimony. You don't have to have a degree in seminary or theology to share what Jesus has done in your life. And sometimes Jesus is working through folks in this room and out there in the wild, as I like to say, to minister to you. You might encounter somebody at the grocery store. You take time to stop and say, hey, what's up? They may be a fellow believer. Our encounters with folks, remember, we may be like the Bible that they read for the day. And man, I'm praying, Lord, they catch me on a good day, because they catch me out there on a bad day, and it's like, man, that's not a bad Bible. That guy talks to people about Jesus on Sunday. He's a mess. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a mess. Will you forgive me? Yes, sure. Yeah, all right. Arm's distance. We don't want to create that, right? Thank you guys for having grace to share with me on a regular basis. He's saying, I don't understand everything about Jesus, but I know what happened when I encountered him. And that is enough. All right, we're going to look at verses 13 through 34, but let me summarize a few here. Because this one is actually, I see it as a painful, it's ironic. I don't know if it's like satire, almost comedy, dark humor. The Pharisees just got something wrong with them. That's just what I got, you know. So Pharisees are into red tape, man. They're like, I think our oldest daughter is going to be a head of compliance. They're like the compliance and HR department, and you can't get anything done. Sorry if you're in HR. But, you know, it's like you can't get anything done. Compliance is like that. It's like you're in the corporate world. You're like, hey, we want to go do this. Sorry, you can't do that. The Pharisees throughout here are all hung up on the fact that a miracle took place, so much so that they actually called Jesus, they boldly said, well, maybe he's a sinner. I'm like, you do not want to be in the same room. Jesus is a sinner? Oh my goodness. Like, they are confused and angry. So again, this man who was born blind, had never once seen anything, becomes the clearest sighted person in the entire chapter. Even the disciples who are walking with Jesus, the blind man sees the clearest, spiritually speaking. And I imagine how clear his vision was. You want to talk about 2020? I know they got like better vision now, better than 2020, whatever that means. But his vision was clear. He saw Jesus for who he is. So the Pharisees, they get word of this healing, and immediately, what do? They start an investigation. All right, I got to go figure out what's going on. Hold on, let me get my fancy robe and then all my other stuff. Let me take 45 minutes to get dressed. Then we're going to go find this guy. Sorry, hope I didn't insult any Pharisees out there. But they interview this man. They interview the parents. They call him back in. They interrogate him a second time. And after all that, after a man testifies repeatedly that he was blind and he now sees, their conclusion is, Jesus is a sinner and we don't believe you. Like, town knows that he was blind and now he sees, but like, who became blind? Who's blind right now? The Pharisees. The Pharisees are blind. The blind man can see, the Pharisees are still blind. I think they're still blind. I like to believe a few of them along the way are their eyes are opening, those scales are following. They saw a miracle and they chose paperwork because it didn't follow their rules. Well, man, I had a pastor years ago I used to ride motorcycles with. He says, man, I had this thing, I wanted to be an outlaw. And he goes, you ain't got a chance of being an outlaw. And he leaned over and he says, greatest outlaw that ever lived was Jesus. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he goes, he fulfilled the law. And I was just like, what? I was a baby believer, you know. And what an impact that made. I was like, man, this Jesus was just like, Sabbath? Why wouldn't we heal on the Sabbath? Nope. Don't push that elevator button. Don't walk up those steps. It's Sabbath. Jesus is like, nope. We'll heal somebody. Now, he's not doing that to reject the law or the authority of God, which he is God. He's actually saying, I am God again, and walking it out. So they threw him out, and that's where Jesus finds him again. I always think Jesus, is he like smiling in his head, or is he just frustrated with us humans, his children? I just think he's a perfect parent, right? So John chapter 9, verses 35 through 39, Jesus heard that they had cast him out. And having found him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? Here goes Jesus on his questions. He answered him, and who is he, sir, that I may believe in him? Jesus said to him, you have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you. He said, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped him. Jesus said, for judgment I came into this world, that those who do not see may see, and those who do see may become blind. Boom. He's talking about people that are like, I want to believe. I believe in you. And these Pharisees, he's like, they're blind. Because they don't get it. It's almost like, dust your feet up. They're just leave them over there. We got stuff to do. We got stuff to do. Don't get wrapped up in that. Here's the twist in the story, right? The man born blind can now see physically and spiritually. He believes, but what does it say that he worships? Now, did he go, I'll be back. I'm going to go to church and worship. Well, let me get my checkbook out. I'm going to worship. Well, hold on. What's the music sound like? Oh, no, I didn't like that song. Well, okay. He worshiped on the spot. He encountered awesomeness. It literally changed his life physically and spiritually. That's what encountering Jesus looks like. That's what it looks like when you go, I am saved. I am no longer lost. My eternity is secure. What are the Pharisees? The educated. Nothing wrong with education, by the way. They're religious. The ones who were supposed to be able to see, they were the ones who were actually blind. They saw the miracle, and their first response was to discredit it, say no, not possible. And I think there was a jealousy thing there. Like, well, we didn't do it. How come he gets to do it? Well, I mean, apparently you're not paying attention, because he said, I am, a couple times already. He said, I am God. Jesus, creator of the universe, says, I do these things. I take dirt and I created man. I took dirt, I spit in it, and a man became physically and spiritually healed in a moment. There was no process to walk through. It was instantaneous. Here's what I want you to hear. You can be in church every Sunday, and I want you here. I want us to all be here. I want us to all learn together. You can know the right verses. You can use the right language, and I screw that up all the time, guys. And you know what? You could still be missing Jesus completely. You could miss him. There's one thing to know about Jesus, and there's another thing to know Jesus. I can know about someone, but to get to know them, I need to sit down and do life with them. I need to sit down and talk and walk and see, the ugly sides of our lives. Jesus didn't have any, but you know what I'm talking about with us while we're here, walking together, praying for one another, laughing together, crying together, praying together, worshiping together, knowing and learning more about Jesus every single week together. That's what it's about. Getting to know Jesus more and more. You can look at these different parts here. The Pharisees actually cast him out. It's a formal like synagogue exclusion. And if that happened, if you get excluded from the synagogue back then you were actually like, you get cut off like physically, financially. That's where people went to get help. They're like, nope, you can't be here because you're something else. You're not allowed to be here. They cast him out. They washed their hands of him of sorts. And then this part right here, that those who do not see may see. Jesus says he came for judgment, but not the kind that we typically picture. We think judgment of something else. It's a diagnostic judgment. The light does not create blindness. It reveals it. It's like, man, I'm stepping in here for those who want to be healed. That's a personal decision if you want to get better. I like to think of church is for those that are spiritually sick. It's like, you're not doing well, go to church. And when I say go to church, Sunday's cool. It's awesome. Let's do that together. But the reality is, who's in your life? Like, who's the big C? Who are you walking with and doing life with to say, man, I'm hurting. I'm in a pinch. I've made poor decisions. Now, some of you husbands might be thinking, well, that's my wife. I was like, that's great. That's fantastic. Find you a dude to walk with too. Find you somebody that can walk with you and you can grow spiritually together. And say, hey, I don't want to do this alone. And I love the fact that the man worships. It's not actually gratitude. This word actually is used throughout the New Testament. It's not respect. It's just worship. And you may think to yourself, if you've ever asked yourself this question, why you were created? Well, it's because I needed to excel in all of these things so that I could surround myself with all of my placards. That is not it. I love to break it to you. I don't want to say I hate to break it to you. I love to break it to you that you were created to worship Jesus. Now that might, if you're offended by that, come talk to me. Because I would love to hear why you were created other than that. I mean, it's not me you're arguing with. You were created in his image to worship him. So you're thinking, how do I apply that? Okay, well, there's a couple things here. This is the interrogation test, since we're using these fun words. When someone questions your faith this week and you're thinking, well, nobody questions my faith this week. Well, that's a whole nother question. They don't question my faith. Do not run from the question. Let it sharpen you. Now, I get the amazing opportunity to have lots of spiritual conversations, which is awesome. But if you're not having spiritual conversations, pray to have them. Don't be scared of them. And you think, well, I don't know enough. I don't know. I don't have this entire thing memorized. Well, neither does Jerry. Jerry can't say half the words right. So what's stopping you? Have a spiritual conversation. Go, hey, man, do you believe the Bible's true? And it might be somebody in this room, or you're driving down the road with your spouse or your family member, whatever. You say, man, has Jerry lost his mind? And the answer is probably yes, but still. How about this one? Religious routine versus actual sight. Take an honest inventory this week. Are there areas of your spiritual life that have become routine? Maybe. Things you do because That is what you do without any actual encounter with Jesus underneath them. The Pharisees had all the forms of religion and none of the sight. What would it look like to trade performance for presence? That's what the blind man did. He sat in the presence of Jesus and worshiped. All right, as we move out to the last couple verses there, it says here, some of the Pharisees near him heard these things and said to him, "Are we also blind?" It's wild. I mean, this is a show. Jesus said to them, if you were blind, you would have no guilt. But now that you say, we see, your guilt remains. I mean, man, Jesus is just like perfect in all of his words. It's a closing verdict that actually takes place of the whole chapter. And I think it's quietly one of the most devastating things Jesus says. He really just hits them hard with it. When we admit we cannot see, there's kind of hope for you, right? Blindness, you acknowledge, can be healed. But blindness you refuse to admit, that's the dangerous kind. I feel like I have both in life. That's just being honest with you guys. I feel like I have both in life. So the person who knows that they are in the dark is already reaching for the light switch. Or they're looking for it, at least. They're fumbling around, at least they're looking for it. The person who insists the lights are on when they are not, that person walks into walls immediately. Now you would think that's silly. If this room is completely dark, and there was one person in here saying, well, the light's on. What? You turn the light on, everything changes. The Pharisees said, we see, and Jesus said, then your guilt remains. They claimed clarity they did not have. They did not have that clarity. In doing so, they actually closed themselves off from the only one who could give them sight. They basically rejected him. They rejected him and says, no, we don't need that in our lives. And I'm like, oh man, I need you more and more each day, Jesus. I need you more and more each day. So Jesus comes with a diagnosis and a cure. The diagnosis is that we have blind spots. We all have them. I know you might be thinking there and you watching online thinking, well, I don't have any blind spots. That's your blind spot. So that's pretty easy. So we do. We have blind spots, and some of us realize what they are. We don't see perfectly. Maybe our vision's a little bit distorted. Pride. It could be distorted by pride or by hurt, by something that happened in the past. Maybe years of self-protection. Sin. How about this one, guys? How about sin that you've made peace with? Well, this is just who I am. Boy, I'm guilty of that one too. So that's the diagnosis. The cure is stop saying, I see, when you do not. Open your hands, open your eyes, and say, Lord, show me what I've been missing. And trust him for that. So how do we apply this? Name your blind spot. This week, instead of avoiding it, name it. I don't like to do that sometimes, guys. You do not have to have it figured out. You just have to bring it into the light. Tell God, here it is. I've been saying I see in this area, but I do not open my eyes. The admission is the beginning. It feels like the scariest part, I know. Feels scary. What is the one step of obedience you have been postponing because you wanted more clarity first? Consider taking this week. Take that step. So how do we apply the gospel here and connect it all up? The man born blind never asked Jesus to heal him. Did you catch that part? He never asked him to heal him. Man, Jesus just did it. He was just sitting there in his usual spot, doing what he always did when Jesus passed by. Oh, if I could only touch his cloak, if I could touch his robe, if I could just see his face, if I could just, man, if you just ask, say, Lord, step into my life. My life's a wreck. It's a mess. And my heart is missing you. I've tried to fill it with all these other things and it's not working out. So think about the blind man's. He got healed and it cost him everything. He got back and he was just like, nobody wanted to acknowledge that it was actually him. His community rejected him. The Pharisees cast him out. He had no standing whatsoever. He was cast out. The one who cast him out actually encounters him again. He actually cast out his blindness so that he could see. Man, are we sitting there? Do we receive that? Light gives clarity. Light brings freedom, and that is true. I promise you that. And the light of the world gives you access to the Father. because of Jesus' work on the cross. So if you're sitting here this morning and you feel like you're still in the dark, Jesus is not waiting for you to find another way or for you to fumble out of your darkness. He's standing right there. He's sitting there, right there going, just turn to me, face me. Let me fill you up. Let me meet that. Let me heal you from the inside out. Question is, will you let him open your eyes? That's a decision you have to make, because that is the free will part. It's up to you. So the invitation is the exact same as it is today as it was at the pool. So step into it.